How free is your voice? My approach is really designed to liberate your natural or your authentic voice so that you can actually consciously choose how you show up, how you communicate, and how you express yourself. Yet for most of us, including myself, until we do this deeper work, we are blocking our authentic or natural voice from actually emerging. And then we wonder why perhaps people don't respond to us in the way that we would like. So in today's video, I want to talk about some of the key signs that you are actually blocking your authentic or your natural voice. Now, because everyone's awareness is at a different level, I'm going to put these into three different groups. So you could have something in all three groups, or you might only have the awareness in one group. So the first is emotional signs, the second is physical signs, and the third is audible signs. So if this resonates with you and you want to learn more, stay tuned because I'm going to talk about this in a lot more depth. But before I get going, my name is Anuska Taylor, and I'm an experienced voice coach and a Jungian depth coach. And so uniquely, I really work on the voice from the inside out because my whole philosophy is going to be limited by what's going on within. So your voice is really just expressing what you really feel, think, and believe about yourself at the deepest level. The challenge for most people is they don't know what they really think, feel, and believe about themselves because so much of it's unconscious. So that's really where I help clients to become conscious of what they're currently unconscious of. And that's what makes my approach so transformational and so unique. So this channel is all about the voice from psychology through to vocal function and then expression. So if you are interested in that, please do consider subscribing. If you're interested in working with me, there are many links below I've got a couple of online courses through to my signature 8-month private voice coaching program, Speak with Impact, if you're ready to make the most profound investment in what is really a lifelong skill. So let's talk about this because I personally struggled with this for many years. And for those of you that don't know, I've been singing most of my life. I actually started initially my journey in voice coaching as a singing teacher. But interestingly for me, I never had a problem singing on stage, but I hated the bit between songs where I had to speak to an audience. And I would literally do anything to try and not speak to an audience. And I would try and go straight into the next song, or I would just say, thanks. Okay, here's the next song. I would literally just avoid any contact with the public, which sounds really weird. And I realized that despite all my years of training around singing, speaking was different, even though it was the same physical instrument. Yes, there's more complexity to singing, of course, it's more demanding, but fundamentally, we're dealing with the same instrument. And so this is when I discovered Jungian psychology, when I started to do my own individuation journey and really look at what I was so fearful of in expressing myself in speaking on stage. So I had learned that singing was safe and I got love for singing, but speaking for me was very unsafe. I got a lot of criticism and judgment and ridicule. So I learned it just wasn't safe. And I realized that this was very, very prevalent in our world. Like most people have this to a greater or lesser extent. You just might not be conscious of it. So today I want to talk about the three key areas where it's going to show up if you are really blocking your authentic voice, you're blocking that natural voice from emerging. And as I said at the start, one of these areas will probably resonate more with you because we all have different levels of awareness. For many of the clients I work with, they've got such a limited kinesthetic awareness of their voice. It's very much down to either what they hear on a recording or someone giving them some feedback, or what we're going to talk about first of all is the emotional feedback, because these are signs that your voice is blocked. And this was for me where it was really obvious because, to be honest, my voice was very trained. So I didn't really feel it in that sense because I'd been doing singing lessons and voice training since I was 10. So it never really revealed itself to me in those other ways. But the emotional one was the big one for me. So let's talk about some of these because I think everyone has this to a greater or lesser extent. And it's really about, as Carl Jung said, making the unconscious conscious. And then you are free to choose how you show up, how you speak, how you express yourself, how you engage with people. So the first one was a big one for me, which is a difficulty in articulating and expressing yourself, whether it's your thoughts, your feelings, or ideas. And maybe when you come to speak, your mind goes blank. Your voice shuts down. Your voice just suddenly gets sucked back into your throat. You just find it really difficult to actually think clearly and express yourself. And then you just sound like you don't know what you're talking about, or you don't sound very assertive or authoritative. And I used to find this quite a lot, particularly I used to work in the corporate world. And whenever there was any kind of challenging conversations, I would find that my mind would go completely blank and I couldn't remember what I was even going to say and why I was annoyed in the first place. And so I would find I'd have to write everything down first, just so that I could remember what to say. But then, even when I did say it, I just felt like my voice just emanated powerlessness. So I didn't get the result that I wanted. So is that you? Do you struggle to articulate your thoughts, feelings, ideas, and opinions with confidence, with authority, with power, with strength? Again, this is very, very common. The second one, which I've sort of already alluded to, do you avoid challenging conversations or situations where you think might escalate into conflict? Now, again, I'm not saying that you want to actively pursue conflict, but differences of opinion are just part of being human and living in communities and families and workplaces. Are you confident and courageous enough to actually express yourself, even in the face of people disagreeing with you, even if you know that no one's going to agree with you, but in your heart, you know it's your truth? Again, this was something I found very, very challenging and something I had to work through all of the shadow aspects of myself that I could avoid by not doing this. Do you just find yourself avoiding conflict, avoiding challenge? Because the more we avoid something, the more we create it. This is the irony. So the more I tried to avoid this, the more I kept finding myself in situations where there was conflict and there was challenge. So we have to just really learn to face this stuff head on in order to be free. But that's a bigger thing, and that's what I do in my private coaching. Number 3, this is an interesting one. So, do you have sudden, uncontrolled emotional outbursts? So, most of the time, you're kind of pretty pleasing, and everyone would think you're really, really lovely and gentle and kind. And then suddenly, out of the blue, you just have this explosion of emotion. You get really angry, or maybe you start crying. And it just almost, for the people around you, it's like, where did that come from? Because often it's not even directed at the people it's really about. So this is a sign that you are suppressing your emotions, suppressing your voice, and it's almost like the lid on the pressure cooker. You can only keep the lid on for so long before it explodes. And this is why it feels like this explosion. It feels like you have no control. And then probably you might feel guilty because you've then shouted at someone or got angry at someone, that it wasn't really about them, it was about something else. And this is very common, I think, in families and with our partners. We stuff our emotions and then we explode onto the people where we feel it's safe. Again, this is a suppression of emotion. And so what the ego does is it projects it onto other people. When really what you want to do is start to own your own emotions, integrate your own emotions, and then you can actually have those more challenging conversations. You can actually express your anger or express your sadness or frustration or whatever in a very calm but authoritative and assertive way. Because then people are actually going to listen to you. This is the thing, because I grew up in this kind of home. People just don't take you seriously when you have these explosions of emotion. They just will avoid you. Do you feel misunderstood, ignored, or unheard? Again, all the same thing, this suppression of emotion, this suppression of my voice. It's not safe for me to express myself. So my energy is one of powerlessness, hesitation, and doubt. And therefore, I find people just don't take me seriously. They do talk over me, they do interrupt me, they don't really listen to anything I have to say. So again, we have to bring the power back to ourselves. The external world is just a mirror. Now, that doesn't mean we let people off the hook. It doesn't mean we don't have conversations with people, but we own what's ours, and most of it is ours. And then we can have those conversations with people in a far more helpful and productive way. Do you dominate conversations? Are you the opposite? Are you the person that always interrupts and keeps talking and doesn't actually let anyone get a word in edgeways? Now, this is interesting because if this is a pattern for you, I guarantee this is something about avoiding vulnerability and avoiding intimacy and connection. Because if you don't ever let anyone get a word in edgeways, then there's never any opportunity to actually build a connection. And then it's just you sort of forcing your voice and almost like broadcasting on people. And it's really a way of controlling the conversation so no one can ever get too close to you. So the ego is very clever, but this requires a lot of self-awareness because your mind, your ego might just reject this and say, no, well, I do that because they need to listen to me. But we've got to be really honest with ourselves. Is that actually really serving me? And then finally, and I think this is a huge one for our modern world where everything is online, WhatsApp messages, apps, etc. Do you just avoid responding to people? Like, this is too hard. I don't want to deal with this. And I think this is big in the dating world as well. It's like you're having a conversation with someone and then you just decide you're not interested anymore. But rather than actually tell them you're not interested, I'm just going to delete them. They'll get the message. I'll just remove them from the app. I'll just delete them from my contacts. Rather than having a really honest conversation and just saying, look, I'm not feeling this anymore. I think it's best that we don't communicate. It's so common now and it's so easy just to delete people, delete contacts, delete messages, delete emails, delete voice notes, that we can just pretend that we never got the message. But again, you've got to be really honest. Are you someone that ghosts people? Are you someone that stonewalls and just doesn't want to go there? Because it's actually really hurting you ultimately, because it's impossible to build real connection with people when that's your MO for handling anything challenging from a communication perspective. So do any of those resonate? And as I said, for me, this was really where it started to show its head for me, because the other aspects which I'm going to talk about, I didn't really notice because my voice was so well trained. But emotionally, if we really start to tune in, I think most people will resonate with at least one or two of those, because I just don't think we are taught how to communicate in our world. Most of us are not modeled that by our parents. We're really modeled either scream and shout at people and project your emotions onto everyone else, or just shut down, suppress, and don't speak. Neither of which are actually going to build those lasting connections. And we wonder why people struggle in relationships so much, because if you can't communicate, then that's really the building block. So the next one is the physical signs. And for some people, this is easier for them to pinpoint than the emotional ones. It depends how aware emotionally you are. But also, this is about kinesthetic awareness. So for some people, they don't have much kinesthetic awareness of their voice. So let's go through a few of these. So first of all, do you get a lot of throat infections or sore throats? So remember, this is more of an energy now around the voice and around suppression. So these are all pointing to, I'm not actually allowing my voice out. I'm blocking it, I'm stuffing it, I'm squeezing it, I'm tensing it. I'm doing whatever I can to not let my voice out. Number two, this is really common: hoarseness, raspiness, or croakiness. Is there a lot of croakiness in your voice when you speak? Now, we can all have this when you're sick, when you're tired, at the end of the day, but is this a common thread in terms of how you speak? Is there a lot of hoarseness, croakiness, or raspiness just generally when you speak? Versus it might just be when you're sick. I mean, I get it when I'm sick as well. So this is no judgment. But again, it's looking at the themes, it's looking at the patterns. Number three, really big one, jaw problems. Do you grind your teeth at night? This was a big one for me. I used to really grind my teeth to the point where I had to wear a mouth guard at night because I was eroding my teeth by grinding. Do you have TMJ? Or even when you speak, do you just find that your jaw barely opens, like it's so tense that you find it very, very hard to open your jaw? So again, in isolation, this doesn't necessarily mean you're blocking your authentic voice, but if you added this to some of the emotional stuff, or maybe the sore throats, or maybe some of the other things I'm going to talk about, then you start to see, okay, I am really stuffing my voice here. I am not allowing my voice out. Now, if my jaw is tight and stiff, my voice isn't coming out. This is where it comes out. It doesn't come out of your ears. It doesn't come out of your nose. It comes out of your mouth primarily. So if we don't open the jaw, or there's a lot of tension in the jaw, then it can't come out. Another one which is very interesting, do you experience any thyroid issues, imbalances in your thyroid? Less common, but I have worked with people before where they've had problems around their thyroid. So again, in isolation, maybe it's not an issue, but if you added it to some of the other things, it's just all pointing. It's all around the larynx. It's all about the throat. It's all about the throat chakra. If we want to talk about chakras, this is all about me stuffing my voice, where I've learned it wasn't safe to express myself in whatever form. Another one, a big one as well, again, one I see and talk a lot about, do you move your lips when you speak? Do you have a stiff upper lip? Really, really common. The amount of people that don't move their top lip when they speak, they talk like this and it's just the bottom lip, almost like a ventriloquist dummy. And you really want both lips, I've done videos on this, to be moving, equally taking on the responsibility of articulation. Because if it's just the bottom lip, then you know it's going to be going into the jaw. We want to balance out the responsibility of this with both lips. So just something to pay attention to. Again, you might not notice. If you've always had a stiff upper lip, you probably won't notice that your lip isn't really moving. Another one that I used to struggle with, I can see so much of this in myself, particularly my 20-something-year-old self. Do you have a lot of neck problems? Stiffness in your neck pain, neck tension, and even into your shoulders? Again, the larynx lives in the throat and it's in the neck. So anything around the larynx, the neck, the shoulders, the jaw, the lips, just start to pay attention. It's all ways that we squeeze, suppress, tense, limit, stuff, block our voice. And then finally, a big one, I think, which is very common for many people, is there's a lot of chest rigidity and almost like a bracing through the upper body. So kind of like this. And therefore the chest is rigid, there's no softness, we can't get the breath deeply into the body, we can't breathe fully. So the breath can become very shallow and tight. Or for a lot of people, they actually hold their breath a lot when they speak. And so there's no way for the voice to be really efficiently powered if the breath can't freely move. So again, just notice, also this can be common if you're someone that does a lot of weights at the gym. You could have ended up with a very sort of rigid chest. So you end up, particularly men, I think, because they've got bigger muscles generally. So there can be a lot of rigidity here, and we want that softness, we want that movement so the breath can move. The final area is the audible signs. Now, this might be easier for you, particularly if you record yourself and you listen back. So here's some ideas, things that I see very, very common with the people that I work with, and I've already alluded to some of them in the physical signs. So you have no control over your voice. It's either weak and powerless, or it's loud, domineering, and forced. So both two sides of the same coin, neither are better than the other. Just because your voice is loud and domineering and forced doesn't mean you are expressing your authentic self. It's actually about, can I move between the two sides, the yin and the yang? Do I have access to my voice? Can I be gentle and soft and there to be vulnerability? But can I be authoritative and loud and assertive if I need to be? But what you'll find is if this is you, you're sort of stuck on one side of the fence or the other. And actually to go to the other side of the fence probably will feel quite threatening to you, to your ego. It will feel quite scary to let your voice out in a bigger way, or to actually just sit back and be more gentle and soft and more vulnerable. And I work with people on both sides of the fence. And depending on what side of the fence they're on, we will then focus on really kind of integrating the other side. Is your voice kind of harsh, clipped, abrupt, almost very defensive sounding? So it becomes almost like a barking dog, using the analogy of a barking dog that's like the guard dog. It's like it almost becomes, don't come near me, don't talk to me, because the voice is so snappy and abrupt and harsh and clipped. So it's a sure way to keep people away. And again, it might serve you if you're in a particular role where you're trying to get people to do stuff. But in terms of building connections and relationships, No one really wants to be around someone like that because you just feel you're going to get your head bitten off. Already alluded to this. Is there a lot of breathiness in your voice? Is it very airy? Now, again, breathiness, airiness, occasionally, that's fine. But is that your MO? Is that where your voice lives and you can't get out of it? That's when you know it's something deeper. It's not just how you're using your voice in this particular moment. There's something that it's protecting you from. Is your voice very muffled and mumbled? So coming back to the jaw not opening or the lips not working together, if the jaw is tense, if the lips don't really move, there's going to be a lot of mumbled and muffled sounds when you speak. Mumbling is incredibly common, but what people tend to do is they try and fix it on the surface. Let me just try and articulate more. Let me just do some articulation exercises. And that's probably what you'd get from most voice coaches. But my approach is, well, why are you mumbling in the first place? This is not random. There might be some conditioning in terms of your family and your upbringing, but still in some way, it is protecting you from actually allowing your voice out and being heard. Another one, very, very common, particularly on my channel, my most popular video is about I speak too fast. So again, if you don't have any control over your speed, if it's fast speech or no speech, then you know there's something deeper driving it. So in and of itself, speaking fast is not a problem because sometimes we need to speak fast. Sometimes it makes sense. But if you have no other choice around your voice, if you can't slow down, then you know there's a protection driving it. And then finally, another one very, very common. Does your voice sound monotonous, flat, and dull? Like you don't really have much expression. It's almost like if you were playing your voice on a piano, if it was a song, it would just be basically one note you'd be playing for like half an hour. Are you able to get variety in your pitch when you intonate, when you modulate? Or is it just all down here or all up here? But there's nothing, there's no movement, there's no animation, there's no agility and freedom in your voice. It sounds heavy, it sounds flat, it sounds dull. So again, you might get feedback from a very, very, very courageous person that tells you this. But I think for a lot of people, it's when they hear themselves back, a recording of a meeting or a presentation, and they're like, oh my God, I sound so boring. I don't even want to listen to myself. So it's about being very, very honest. And I say this to people all the time. It's not about being honest in terms of now I'm going to beat myself up because I'm a terrible person because I do these things and I'm blocking my authentic voice. It's not that. It's really about bringing this to awareness because you're not deliberately doing this. You are responsible for changing it and it's 100% on you. No one can do it for you, but you're not deliberately doing this. These are habits that are driven from the unconscious, driven probably from childhood, even earlier than childhood, passed down through generations. Particularly, I think for women, it's not, we've been taught over many generations, it's not safe for us to have a voice. Starting to change now, but it's still in our lineage, it's still in our DNA, it's still being passed down through generations. So for a lot of women, actually feeling like they really can take up space and own the room and express themselves fully feels very vulnerable. And so I see out in the world, there'll be women that are very loud and domineering and very vocal, and then there's women that just don't say much at all, but both are coming from that insecurity. So we want to actually do our own work to begin to integrate the parts of ourselves that we've been taught were bad, were wrong, that were unacceptable. And this is shadow work. Because truthfully, your authentic voice is all of this. It's not just loud, it's not just quiet, it's not just monotone or expressive, it's everything. It's being able to access whatever you need in that moment for a particular situation. So it becomes a conscious choice versus I'm just driven from my conditioning. And that's where 99.9% of people are until they wake up. So I hope this has been really helpful. If you want some support with this, you can book a one-off 1 hour session with me below. Link is below. And I can sort of help you with this and help you to identify some of this. But if you really want to transform this, then I definitely would recommend my 8-month private voice coaching program. We can go so much deeper in this and really transform not only your voice, but how you feel about yourself how you show up and how you express yourself. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on next week's video.